Wilds of Eldraine draft season was a fun one here on the channel, and new Wilds of Eldraine draft content has unfortunately come to an end, but that doesn't have to mean that Wilds of Eldraine limited content has to end as well. Over the course of this format, I ended up doing 33 total drafts and earning a 7-win trophy in 9 of those drafts, putting my trophy rate at 27% to go along with my 62% game win rate over the life of the format. So I thought, what would be a more fun way to close out such a successful format here on the channel than with a little top 8 of my best draft decks over the course of Wilds of Eldraine. Of those 9 trophies, I've chosen my 8 favorite decks to battle it out in a single elimination best of 3 top 8 tournament, and after 7 videos over the course of the next 7 days, we will be able to crown what was my best drafted deck in Wilds of Eldraine. Now, to help me with this tournament, I've enlisted the assistance of longtime viewer and patron of the channel, Ruben, to act as my opponent for each of these 7 matches, and today we will be starting with me playing Temur Adventures, which was draft number 5 posted to the channel on September the 15th. This deck is a base blue-green deck that is splashing a couple of off-color adventures, and most importantly, Balloona Grand Squall. It features 8 different adventure creatures, plenty of card draw, some key fixing, and a couple of bombs to top it off. Ruben will be piloting Selesnya Auras, which was a deck that was live streamed to the channel on September the 7th. Green-White ended up not exactly being one of the best decks in the format, but this deck came through with the trophy. It features a couple of key, very powerful cards in Tanglespan Lookout, Regal Bunnycorn, and Werefox Bodyguard, which all represent just raw power, but it also has some ramp elements with Utopia Sprawl and Root Rider Fawn, and plenty of removal to boot. And to close it out, sometimes all you need is a Hamlet Glutton or a Stormkeld Vanguard. Drop a comment down below to let me know which deck you think will come out on top, and I'll see you in the match. Okay, so we get to play first in this first match here. So we're going to go ahead and choose to play. And we have to start with a hand that is a suspect keep here, but we do have Spell Stutter, Frolicking Familiar, and Entry Denied with just the 2 islands, so it's probably a keep. Full transparency, I am recording my my face and audio here post-match and going to be dubbing this over. My audio didn't come through in the original match, so I'm basically acting as commentator here, but all is well in the world. So we did end up keeping this hand. Again, we got 2 islands, we've got a Spell Stutter, we've got Entry Denied as interaction here. So I think it's a keep. It's obviously a little suspect, and he hits us with a turn 1 Utopia Sprawl, which is never something you want to see on our side of the battlefield. Obviously leading to what is probably going to be pretty good stuff. So now Restless Vinestalk ETB's tapped. So the question is, do I play that and tap out of Spell Stutter, or do I play the island, which is what I chose to do, so that I can hold up Spell Stutter here? And I think the island is the correct choice, because there's plenty of powerful cards that could come out of his deck. And you know what? I'm thinking about it here. The reason I don't counter this is because I do have Entry Denied in hand, as you can see me point to right there, which goes ahead and permanently deals with that 2/2. So that's why I just let him have the Hopeful Vigil. I'm going to hold Spell Stutter for another turn here. 4 mana, and we are tapped out. So let's see what he is able to resolve through our mana. I'm noting there is a Return from the Wilds in the hand that we're probably going to use next turn. We now have 4 mana. So the question is, do I Vanguard and hold up Stutter? But looks like I'm going to go for the Return from the Wilds line here. And I will grab, I'm thinking about red versus green. See what we go with. Red lets us play the adventure half of Frolicking Familiar, and green gives us access, as I point out right there, to the Stormkeld Vanguard at some point. But I do go ahead and get the red, which gives us access to the adventure half of Frolicking Familiar, which is why I did choose that. Still don't have Spell Stutter up, but that's probably okay. Okay, coming in with Genealogist. Obviously not blocking. No reason to do that right now. And is there a post-combat play from Ruben here? There is not. Interesting. So now we have a couple of options. Obviously, I'm pointing at the fact that he very well could just be sacrificing that to Scry. So we have 5 mana. I think what I end up going with here is a Frolicking Familiar holding up Spell Stutter, but we shall see. I notably didn't see the adventure half of Stormkeld Vanguard here, which I think using that on Utopia Sprawl probably would have been pretty good at this point. But I want to make sure I get value out of this Spell Stutter. So I do hold that up. He is just sacrificing Hopeful Vigil. Fine by me. And again, as you saw on the screen earlier in the intro, if you are interested in future sets, in being my opponent in videos like this, you got to go ahead and join the Patreon. Ruben is a patron of the channel here, and that's how he got access to be my opponent in these matches. So if you'd like to play me in the future, any play level is welcome for you all as well. So Ruben now has access to 6 mana, so not quite on a hard cast Hamlet Glutton yet, but let's see if Spell Stutter can get anything here. Alright, Graceful Takedown. So I can pump the Frolicking Familiar by casting the adventure half of the other Frolicking Familiar, which would then kind of fizzle the Graceful Takedown here. So that is what I go for. I mean, I'm kind of betting he doesn't have a way to pump the Genealogist at instant speed. So let's see. He doesn't have an instant, so what is it? Moment of Valor to pump the power of the Genealogist to kill the Familiar. Okay. That works for me. You'll also note that while we do kind of have each other's deck lists, we're not referencing them at all throughout these games. I'm not like, oh, I'm going to play around this card and so on and so forth. He knows what I have and I know what he has because I played all these decks and he has access to all these deck lists. But it's not as fun to just look at that deck list while you're playing these games, so we didn't reference them during these games here. Alright, so go ahead and get rid of the Utopia Sprawl now. So he is even farther away from a potential Hamlet Glutton here, so I can hold up Misleading Motes and Spell Stutter, or I could play Familiar. Let's see what I choose to do here. Looks like we will go the Motes and Stutter route. Stormkeld Vanguard. Hello, Spell Stutter. That's exactly why we held that up as long as we did. I'm sure he'll attack, and he does. We are down to 13. Drawing the lands. We have access to 7 lands, so question is, do I play Familiar and hold up Motes, or do I just drop one of the big fatties here? And the answer is drop one of the big fatties. He doesn't have a lot of gas left in hand, and at this point, you know, drop a 6/7 followed by a 6/5. It's probably going to get the job done. But there's a Grasp of Fate, so this is a game. There goes Vanguard. In comes Genealogist. Sounds about right. Still getting priority, notably. Don't know exactly what that is. Drawing more lands, because that's what we do. Go ahead and drop a Gatekeeper. Again, just get the big creatures down. And usually that's good enough in these style of decks to get the win here. So let's see what his response to a Gatekeeper is now. Okay. Another land, because welcome to the Daily Draft channel for those of you that are new. This, however, is not new. So we're going to go ahead and animate Vinestalk here, and now we have incredibly good attacks. We can attack with everything, make our 1/1 into a 3/3, and still play Frolicking Familiar post-combat. So this game looks to be pretty much all but over. He had a little bit of Flood, so did we, but that's the power of this Temur Adventures deck, is that... Okay, so Royal Treatment. So, we talked after this game. He unfortunately thought that Royal Treatment was one of those cards that also gave Indestructible, which is why he did what he did there. You know, we all make mistakes. You can see he's reading it now. It does give Hexproof, not Indestructible. End of the day, that little mistake doesn't really come back to bite him too much. I mean, we win. We win this game pretty easily here. Even if he had just saved that creature, he would have 2 creatures to block now. We still activate the Vinestalk. There's so many things we could do. So, either way, we get the win. The mistake doesn't come back to hurt him too much. Now, we are playing these games best of 3. However, we are not sideboarding in between games, as you see. I'll go right into the next one, because there is no sideboard. I didn't play with the sideboard. We're just going to run these games back. And the reason we're doing best of 3 is to avoid the feel-bads of just, you know, getting mana screwed or flooded and then not really playing a game. So I go ahead and take game 1 with this Temur Adventures deck, and then he is on the play in game 2. And I think this is a relatively easy keep. Got all 3 colors of mana. We got a Stutter, we got a Return, Hatching Plans for when we draw a bargain card. Looks good to me. So let's draw this here. Alright, in goes the island. Regal Bunnycorn, a card I would have loved to have the chance to counter, but didn't. So now the question is, do I bounce the Bunnycorn? Do I hold up Stutter? Do I play a Hatching Plans? Do I play a Prism? Many options here, and it looks like I go for the Stutter line, which, looking back at this, probably wish I would have played Prism here. I mean, it's close. Against these kind of assertive decks, you usually want to make sure they can't get on the board relatively quickly, but it did backfire. We don't use any of our mana there, so that's really unfortunate for us. But now we can Brave the Wilds. Go get our second blue for all this blue in hand, and still hold up Stutter, hoping we can hit something. So let's see if we're able to here. Red-Tooth Genealogists. I'll do it. That makes 2 permanents for the Bunnycorn, so we'll go ahead and get that into the graveyard. Horned Lockwhale. Pretty darn good draw here. So we still have options. We've got Hatching Plans, we've got Prism, we've got the Bounce of Entry Denied here, which just looks like that is the route that I decided to take. Now, do I play Prism or Hatching Plans? I'm debating, and I go with Prism. It does draw an extra card, gives us more information on what to do next turn. I don't know why this deck is running a Tanglespan Lookout. Don't ask me. This deck got the 7-1 trophy, so I'm not going to complain too much. But looking back on this deck build, I'm not really sure why there's a Lookout in it. It's just It's one of my favorite cards in the format. And, I don't like cutting it. Simple as that. There's your answer. I think we'll go Return from the Wilds here, probably. Just continue to hit those land drops and ramp. That's my guess. I'm not sure. Can't remember what I did. Let's see. I could use Frolicking Familiar, but I'm pointing out that he left all his mana up and is getting priority here. So I don't use the Adventure on that because I think he's going to add to the board or use the Moment of Valor to give it indestructible or something. So I decide to not take that line here and instead just drop a Hatching Plans. In hindsight, should I have gone for it? I mean, I trade the Familiar for a Moment of Valor, probably. Ooh, Dutiful Griffin, 4/4 flyer. Interesting. Okay. Going to be difficult to deal with, but we're probably going to have to use the Adventure half of Horned Lockwhale on that. So counting the mana now, I have 7 mana. So if I want to use the Adventure half, I have 5 left over. So I could do Lookout, the Adventure half of Familiar, and the Adventure half of Horned Lockwhale. That seems like the most mana efficient thing to do here to dump all my cards. But let's see what we ended up going with. Still making that decision. So we are going to play Lookout, and then I do believe we're just going to hold up all of these instants here. Six mana. Do not have the ability to cast a Hamlet Glutton currently. So we are relying on the Lagoon Breach, or whatever that adventure is called here, to deal with this Griffin. There it is, Lagoon Breach. Hey, I got it right. How many of you know the adventure half names of these cards? Because not me. Well, clearly me, though. I guess I got that one. Ooh, Werefox Bodyguard. What a brutal card to see here. We are seeing the power of this green-white Auras deck come to fruition. Down goes Tanglespan Lookout, and they have 9 power attacking us. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of the Griffin, because that's the one we have the least chance in dealing with later. And I can just chump this Bunnycorn and play a 6/6 next turn and hope that that's good enough. Go to blockers, block. And then I do just fire this thing off because I don't see myself getting any value out of this one point of damage there. So start drawing all the lands again. Play the Horned Lockwhale. And now our board is stable relatively. I'm wondering if it's Graceful Takedown, but no, unfortunately it's Moment of Valor. Moment of Valor push for 8 damage here. Okay, that's tough. We are now at 8. We did draw Bargain Fodder. So now we can bargain the Troublemaker Oof, get rid of Hatching Plans. Incredible draw there. Gives us 3 more cards. Can get rid of the Vigil while he can't activate it, and we draw Restless Vinestalk. That was one of the biggest turns in the entire game here. The power of his deck was showing, but boy did we just draw all of the power of ours. But then we see another Grasp of Fate. So we're going to have to choose how to block here. It's going to be interesting. probably don't want to attack with the bodyguard, although it's possible. So I'm debating chumping here. And I'm thinking hard about it. I wonder if we end up going. We do not, so we go to 4. So what else can we draw? Is there a follow-up? Could have something else in hand. There is an unassuming sage. Okay. So now, again, we are just top decking like kings here. And drawing answers. I'm wondering if I have time to cast into the Fey Court with the Dutiful Griffin. I note that this can block that at the very least. So I do keep the End of the Fey Court. I cast Frolicking Familiar. Or I get rid of the enchantment first, because it doesn't really matter if we cast Familiar first. So, and then I'm counting how much mana I have. I have access to 8. I'm debating Bitter Chilling the Bunny Corn, but it's more likely I want to hold the Bitter Chill for the Dutiful Griffin here. So I decide to hold that in hand. And now, again, we have top decked our way out of this pretty cleanly. So if he just plays Griffin, which he does, we can now just Bitter Chill the Griffin, and then we have the ground creatures to deal with the Bunny Corn. Not too bad. Alright, still access to 10 mana, so we're going to start by chilling the Griffin. And then I'm debating how much I have to activate the Restless Vinestalk. It looks like I can't do this and activate that, so I just go ahead and cast into the Fey Court. See what I draw. And now I have a decision between Return from the Wilds and Frolicking Familiar. So let's see what we choose. Looks like we will go with Familiar with makes sense. And we are kind of now relatively stable. Again, we have drawn all the best cards in our deck, basically, to help us get out of an aggressive start from Ruben in this game. So what is he able to draw? Oof. Hamlet Glutton bargaining away the irrelevant 2/2 here. Okay. So if we're gonna win this one, we gotta fight through some creatures here. Drawing more lands. Usually not great. Doing the math here, there's 13 cards left in the deck, and I do believe there's 4 lands. So I make the 1/1 and get the food, get the trigger on the Familiar, and then let's see what we do with this Attendance here. So we proceed to combat without using its adventure. And I think I'm debating whether or not I want to use the adventure to just push an extra point of damage. It doesn't really... It's not going to do too much in combat for us right now, I don't think. So we're just pushing an extra point of damage here, because we can still cast the Attendance and eat our food after doing that. So it's basically a free point of damage, because I'm not going to use the adventure half. So we just go ahead, eat the food, pass it on back, and now, assuming he doesn't find removal, which it looks like he doesn't, we're probably relatively okay. Now he's got decisions on attacks. He could attack with the Bunny Corn still, but we have 6 power in the air continuing to come here. So he's got that tough attack decision, and he decides not to this turn, understandably. We continue to find our lands. So now it just comes down to attacking with our flyers. And we put him down to, what is this, 12? 11? Put him down to 11. End of the turn. No lands in the yard, counting him up here. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we have 4 lands in our last 12 cards here. Let's see what he is able to find. If I do remember correctly, I believe it is Graceful Takedown, and it is. So he chooses Stormkeld Vanguard here, tries to get rid of our best ground blocker, opens up an attack for Hamlet Glutton here. There's a debate between doing the takedown on the Attendants or on the Vanguard, but on the Vanguard, again, like I said, does open up an attack that he now has. So see what he chooses to do. Looks like the 2 obvious attacks are probably coming through. He probably notices that he's dead in 2 turns, so he has to win this game in 2 turns somehow. Which is a tough spot for him to be in, so I understand these attacks here. And I also understand why he got rid of the Vanguard. But the obvious blocks for me are Gatekeeper on Glutton, and then Chump the Bunnycorn with the 1/1. And I do believe that's the blocks that I make once he declares these attacks. So we'll pass to blockers, Chump, trade, take 1 from Trample. I'm now noticing why I even have Tanglespan Lookout in my deck. And we continue to draw lands. Again, for those of you that are new, welcome, it's what we do. We love to draw lands in the developing portion of the game where we really need some help. So now I'm really questioning how much I can actually attack here. I mean, if I attack with all my flyers, I've got 2 blockers left, which does keep me alive and kills him next turn. He's going to get a Scry from the Hopeful Vigil potentially here. So, really tough spot to be in. Kind of for both of us. We're both in this weird do I attack phase. So I do animate the Vinestalk here. And now I have to figure out how much to attack with. My original thought is this, but then I throw in the Familiar as well, and I'm thinking about it. The thing is about this attack is it's currently only 10 damage. Because I have the 5/5 Vinestalk, can turn my 1/1 into a 3/3, and I have the 2/2 Familiar, which makes it 10 damage, which he could just decide to take. And then all my creatures are tapped, except 2. I'm still not dead on board, but I do decide to go for it here. My thought is, if I have an instant in hand, he has to block or he loses, because the Familiar will get pumped. And if he goes to 1, I probably just win next turn if he can't win this upcoming turn. So I kind of put him in this really weird spot. Because the Vinestalk also has Trample. Yeah, so he's debating the triple block potentially, but then wondering if going to 1 is his best chance at a win here. Because if he triple blocks, he still goes to 6 and he's dead on board next turn. So he does just go to 1. I don't have the instant to finish him off, so we end the turn. He sacrifices Vigil here. Passed at the end of the turn, did choose to keep a card on top, notably. So let's see what it is. Again, currently not dead because I can chump Bunnycorn and then eat any of the other one to go to 2, and then he's dead on the backswing here. I'm not sure he has an out in the entire deck. He did choose to keep one on top, but it probably doesn't really matter what it is. It is Stormkeld Vanguard destroying the Dutiful Griffin enchantment. Unfortunately for him, that doesn't untap the Griffin. So it looks like that means we have the win on board currently. Well, hello there, Balloona. Why not? You have not seen Balloona yet this draft. So, see if he swings with everything, and he does. We go to blockers. We chump the Bunnycorn, we eat the Bodyguard, and it's all over for Selesnya Auras here in favor of Temur Adventures. And you know what? I'm looking at my deck, got 10 cards left. Let's just cast a little Balloona, seek thrills here to see what we can find. And we find 3 cards. Pretty good for the deck here. And then we'll finish them off before we even go to our draw step with a Frolicking Familiar's Blow Off Steam. So Temur Adventures takes down Selesnya Auras in today's matchup. You can see an updated version of the bracket on your screen now. Tomorrow's draft, or tomorrow's deck, will feature Sultai Ramp versus Rakdos Aggro. So tune back into the channel tomorrow to check out that draft. Thanks for tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you tomorrow for more daily draft tournament content.